And so your marketing is about moving someone from the problem state towards the solution state through responding to the advertising. Now, one of the most powerful things that you can do here is give them what I've called the new understanding of a persistent problem, or NUP for short, new understanding of a persistent problem. And so someone comes to you and they know that they've deferred taxes, and they're suddenly getting to retirement and they're realizing they have a decent amount of retirement savings and they're going to end up having to start paying taxes on that or something. Maybe they're getting close to RMD's age and they're worried about the tax bill on that, or they've even started to hear about RMDs. Well, the better that you can help them understand the problem itself, giving them a new understanding of this persistent problem that hasn't gone away yet, the more interested they will be in connecting with you in order to solve that problem. Welcome to Daily Discovery Calls for Financial Advisors, the first and only show dedicated exclusively to helping entrepreneurial, growth-driven financial advisors book more discovery calls with qualified prospects every day of the week. I'm your host, Roy Furr, the Advisor CMO. Let's get into it. Welcome back for episode 3 of the podcast, the Desirable Discovery Calls for Financial Advisors podcast. And this episode is all about my system. It's all about my system to help you get discovery calls booked on your calendar every single day with your ideal clients based on 20 years of responsible, accountable marketing, based on consulting with financial advisors on how to drive more discovery calls since 2018, based on thousands of leads, based on over $2 billion in production. So financial advisors, if you want discovery calls booked on your calendar every single day with your ideal prospective clients, here's the system that you need to build. So what's in this episode? First off, we're going to talk about the 3 critical marketing functions that your marketing system, that your marketing strategy, your approach has to fulfill, what your marketing actually needs to do. Then we're going to talk about, my tease for this is, it's no wonder your marketing doesn't work. Here's why. So we're going to talk about why so much financial advisor marketing just fails to hit the mark in terms of driving response. And then I'm going to share with you a complete breakdown of my system for daily discovery calls. And I'm just pulling back the curtain. I'm saying this is how I get results. And if you want to get results, this is the kind of system that you need to build, that you need to follow with your marketing. It's built for not just where marketing is at today, but where it's going. Now, first, I do want to share how to appeal to more of your market. If you want more discovery calls, you do need to appeal to more of your market. Let's first talk about the discovery call trap. This is what so many financial advisors get wrong. Basically, when you say, hey, give us a call, or hey, schedule an appointment, or even, hey, let's do a discovery call, your prospects know that that's a sales pitch, that they are calling in order to get sold. And so how many people in your market, how many of your ideal prospects are eager to contact you in order to get sold to? Well, the reality is that there are some. There are a few, because when somebody has reached the point where they're basically ready to buy, they're going to raise their hand and say, yeah, sell to me. Okay. They're going to come in, they're going to have that appointment, and hopefully it's going to feel good to them, or else they won't become a client. But it's a very small percentage of your market who are ready to come in and essentially be sold on the idea of becoming a client of your financial advisory. If you change the positioning of your discovery call into what I call a desirable discovery call offer, you can appeal to a much broader segment of your ideal prospects, of your ideal clients, and have them more interested in speaking with you sooner, catching them before they're ready to buy, before they're ready to sign up with the first financial advisor that looks decent to them. You can offer them something where they say, okay, I want to talk to that person, even if they aren't ready to become a client of a new financial advisor yet. And the way that you do that is by creating a discovery call process and an initial appointment process that is designed specifically to deliver a benefit that they want that is like a first step, a first slice of the pie, a first step towards getting the total picture of financial planning. And so a couple great examples of this, just really quickly, is helping them figure out the best time to file for Social Security. That's something that a lot of people want to figure out in the transition to retirement, when they've saved a bunch of money, when their accounts are maybe more mobile, and when they're really transitioning from how do I grow my retirement nest egg as much as possible to how do I use that retirement nest egg in the best way possible. And so they're going to have to make that Social Security filing decision. Well, if you're able to offer a strategy session that helps them decide the right age for them to file for Social Security based on their specific situation, well, that's not doing the whole financial planning process for them. It's a little thing that you can do that's going to drive them towards making the decision to possibly work with you as a financial advisor. Likewise, retirement tax planning is another one where you can do a retirement tax saving strategy session. Hey, we're going to look at your retirement savings. We're going to look at the qualified accounts. We're going to look at tax-free accounts. We're going to look at everything that you have going on right now. And we're going to calculate what your potential tax bills are going to be throughout retirement. And we're going to look at potential tax saving strategies that could apply to your situation, that could work for you, that could lower your lifetime tax obligations on the money that you've saved. So more of that money that you've saved can go towards your retirement and your legacy versus going off to the IRS, right? And so we build this process as an introduction to the many different types of value that we can provide as a financial advisor. And when we do that right, it essentially starts the conversation with a much broader segment of the market than if we focus on just the people who are ready to be sold to. So I don't want to go any further into that because I did put together a free 12-minute quick training where you can create your own desirable discovery call offer. I provide specific insight. I provide specific strategies. That's at TheAdvisorCMO.com/discovery. Again, TheAdvisorCMO.com/discovery. And it's a free 12-minute video you can request there and get that and immediately create a discovery call offer that's going to be more appealing to your target audience. And I will say that that is a good setup for this entire episode because we're going to be talking about a system that largely pivots around this idea of having a really appealing discovery call offer so that we can get people to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested in talking to you. But let's back up just a little bit because when I talk about marketing, when I teach marketing, I teach it at lots of different levels. I teach, and this is, hat tip to Ray Dalio because he has made the idea of principles a much bigger conversation in the marketplace. At the foundational level is principles. And these are like the rules that you live by, right? Or the rules that you do marketing by. It's not a specific strategy. It's not, something tactical. But if you have really good principles, then all of your strategy, tactics, all of that is going to improve. In fact, your principles guide the strategies that you choose. So one of my principles about marketing is that marketing has to generate a sales type result. It has to move the sales process forward. Well, the strategies that I choose for different marketing that I might use is very different than if one of my principles is marketing has to make me look good, right? And so the choices that I make for my marketing, the strategies are going to come from these principles. And so then within the strategies, there are techniques and tactics that are decided based on that strategy. It's a little bit of a sidebar there, but what I'm talking about here, what your marketing system needs to do are the fundamental principles. So your marketing, it needs to attract attention and leads. It needs to attract the attention of qualified, ideal prospects for your financial advisory. And then it needs to attract them to the point where they actually become a lead, where they maybe give you their information and permission to reach out to them again in the future. It needs to nurture high quality prospects. So your marketing First, it needs to attract, then it needs to nurture prospects to become high quality prospects through what I talked about in the last episode, the 7-11-4 rule, where you are engaging with people, giving them the information that they need to go through the buying decision-making process, the evaluation process, so that they are pre-motivated, pre-educated, pre-qualified in understanding financial services and the benefits that you can provide as a financial advisor. And they're eager to be talking to you. That's going to be a high quality prospect, right? And then it needs to convert clients when they're ready. So your system needs to be doing the attract and nurture steps. And then when somebody, whether it's within 60 seconds of encountering you for the first time, or 60 days, or honestly 60 months of encountering you, it needs to give them an opportunity to raise their hand and say, yes, I'm ready to talk to you. I would like to speak with you, and I would like to see what you could do for me. And so your marketing system needs to attract, it needs to nurture, and then it needs to convert those clients, those prospects, those leads into clients when they're ready. And my system, it's absolutely designed to do this. Now, honestly, most financial advisors and most marketers get this wrong, right? And here's why they get this wrong. They start at the top. Now, this comes from the old way of advertising, the old way of marketing, where it's like you get approached by different media sales representatives who try to sell you on their idea of their media being the way that you're going to connect with your audience. And it is by far the most visible part of marketing and advertising. The best, most strategic marketers, the ones who really understand the kind of marketing that can light a fire under a business and make it grow and make it scale, understand that there's so much behind the scenes, there's so much under the surface in the systems and the frameworks that are being used. But what most people see, including most marketers and advertisers, is just that stuff right at the surface. It's the ads that they see out in public. It's the ads that they see as they're browsing around the internet. It's the ads they see on TV and they hear on the radio and all those places, the ads in the different media channels. And so that's where most people start with marketing and advertising. The problem is that this creates the leaky bucket phenomenon. And the leaky bucket, you pour water into a bucket full of holes and all that water is going to go out. You pour valuable leads that you spent good money acquiring into a funnel full of holes, a sales funnel, a marketing funnel full of holes. Well, all those people are going to go out. If your marketing system, if your selling system is a leaky bucket, you're going to lose all the marketing spend, all the advertising spend. Man, I'm just specifically remembering a story of an advertiser that invested $60,000 in a TV test and their sales process stunk. And they ended up basically, flushing a lot of that money down the drain because they were pouring $60,000 into a leaky bucket. And you don't have to do that. In fact, that's what this system that we're going to talk about today is designed to help you avoid. Now, I think it was the intro episode, I talked about doing the marketing for the Titans of Direct Response. And at the Titans of Direct Response, there was a VIP dinner. And this was modeled after the boardroom dinners where Marty Edelston would bring together these people who were like world-leading thinkers on their topics and just have a big roundtable discussion with them at dinner in New York City. And so Brian Kurtz, Marty's number 2 at Boardroom, he hosted this VIP dinner in part because the event itself was in honor of Marty. And so I was sitting next to Joe Polish. I was across the table from Gary Bensavenga. At one end of the table was Dan Kennedy. Brian Kurtz was at the other end. And actually this was like an even bigger version of the boardroom dinner. So I think there were 50 or 60 people around the table, but it was some of the best marketers in the world. And Brian went around the table just like Marty would do at all the boardroom dinners. And Brian had prepared notes for each person that he used to introduce them. And one of those things is, what's your superpower? And I said that my superpower was that I create marketing systems where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, or the result of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so this is applied in, webinar marketing and different kinds of campaigns. When I created lead magnet or free report campaigns, it wasn't just the free report that we're creating, it was building an entire system around that in order to get distribution for that free report as wide as possible and turn as many of those people into discovery calls and clients as possible. And so I build these systems that get better results than the individual pieces alone might suggest. And it's designed, again, to counteract this phenomenon where an advertiser just says, well, I tried this particular type of advertising, it didn't work. Well, it didn't work because all you did was place the ad. You didn't have the right system in place ahead of time. And so you were pouring your marketing dollars, your advertising dollars into a leaky bucket. And so that's why I built the daily discovery calls system. Again, if you're listening, I do put this on YouTube, and this video is especially relevant because I have the flowchart here of the daily discovery call system for financial advisors up on the screen. And basically what you can see, I'll do my best to describe it, is at the top, there's 3 separate starting points. 1 is content, 2 is ads, and number 3 is database. And so we have organic content, paid ads, and database marketing that all can be used to drive traffic. And there's arrows, it's a flow chart, down towards your client magnet and down towards your core conversion system. And so basically what that's saying is, whether you're running paid ads, whether you're doing organic content like on YouTube, or you have your own podcast or something, whether you're doing database marketing, you are using those to pull people into your system, into your world, where they request, where they engage with what I call the client magnet, because it's a lead magnet, but it's a lead magnet that's designed to attract clients, not just leads, and that's designed to turn good leads, qualified leads, into clients. And then from that client magnet, they're pushed into your core conversion system. And I'm going to at least break these down on the strategic level for you, in this episode right now. What I will say, this ties back to why most marketers, including financial advisors, get this wrong, is they start at the top. They're pouring water into a bucket full of holes. Well, I build from the bottom up. I'm mixing metaphors here, which is a terrible practice. But we're going to talk about architecture, right? And so you can't build a building by putting the paint on the walls first. You have to start by building a foundation, then you have to do the framing, and then you have to do the finishing work, right? And that's also how you build a conversion system. And so the foundation is to number 1, build the conversion system itself. The framing is the nurturing that you're going to do, that's going to drive the buying process forward, that's going to help somebody take that evaluation step that I talked about in the last episode and make a decision to move forward with you as a financial advisor. The finishing is the things that we finally do in the end to start attracting clients, right? To start attracting our ideal clients. And that's the ads, right? So we're going to dive into each of those 3 here. So starting with the foundation here, I am a huge fan of what's called process-based selling. Now, process-based selling is basically saying that we're going to figure out what the right process is to convert people who express interest in our services. And we're going to train, in our case, it's the producing advisors. If it's any other sales team, it's the salespeople, right? We're going to train those salespeople what the ideal process looks like. We're going to define the optimal process, and we're going to continue to train them until they are following that process correctly and following that process consistently, because we know that's going to get us better results. And the only purpose of changing that process is to test variations that might work better, and then only continuing to use the changes if those changes are indeed giving you the better results that you want. And I will say the process for an experienced sales professional is not a script. It's more about touch points. These are the different things that we need to talk about. And some things, like I have a series of questions based on my PISA or PISAR formula where it's, what problems or challenges do you face right now in your retirement planning, or what do you see as the biggest challenge to getting the retirement that you want, right? And so that's a problem-based question. And then there's agitation, invalidation, solution, action, and relief questions that you can ask that basically elicit your potential clients' buying criteria and get them to say in their own words why they would choose to move forward with a financial advisor. And so building those questions in, again, here I'm still talking about it's not a script, there's touch points. Building those questions in as something more scripted might make sense at certain steps in the process. But the total conversation is not a script, because you're not going to sell somebody on financial services by just repeating a script. But if you have touch points, talking points, the things that you need to cover, the direction that you want the conversation to go, because you have designed the process to foster the buying decision, to help somebody make their own best buying decision using the information that you can provide, well, then that's an effective process. And so I start at the bottom. Even though I'm here promising daily discovery calls, I care about what happens on and after the discovery call too. And so I use the core conversion system. And the core conversion system is an acronym for capture, orient, recommend, engage. And so capture, you capture the lead with a desirable discovery call offer. I've already talked about that, right? It's the type of discovery call offer where somebody says, I'm interested. Now, the actual capture mechanism is what we do to actually get them to schedule that discovery call. So you need to have a way for them, when they are interested in that, to very easily be able to see your calendar and theirs. There are tools for this, by the way. And to schedule the right time on your calendar and theirs where they can have that conversation with you. Now, orient is to orient them towards the process. And so on the discovery call itself, you are not so much asking a bunch of questions and starting to do financial planning. On the discovery call itself, your role is to be more like the nurse or health tech that comes in ahead of the doctor's appointment and takes your vitals and collects information and gets a description of the symptoms and why the heck are you here today? Why are you reaching out, right? And setting it all up. In fact, I actually prefer that the producing advisor is not the one who's doing these calls, and instead you should either have a junior advisor or an appointment setting team who do these calls, whose job is to qualify and disqualify potential prospects and figure out who the people are that need to be taking an hour block out of your advisor's schedule, and to gather the information needed for that advisor to have as good of a first appointment as possible and to orient the prospect to what they need to show up with at that appointment in order for that process to go as smoothly as possible, tied back to that desirable discovery call offer, the thing that they actually responded to. So if it's, potential tax savings, you orient the entire conversation around that and say the advisor is going to help you in your appointment. And then we get to the recommend step. So capture, orient, recommend, engage, core. In the recommend step, it's a 2-appointment close. And I can tell you what happens in appointment 1. I can tell you what happens in appointment 2. Appointment 1 is about fulfilling the initial desirable discovery call offer, giving them what they came for so they have that sense of this person delivers the value that they promise, but then also pointing out that there is a bigger gap than what they just got between where they are and where they want to be. And we can go back to the PISAR questions that happens in appointment 1, all of that. And then appointment 2 is about looking at what a complete plan would look like with you. And that's motivated by where you end appointment 1. It says, well, we're going to help you with even more when you come back for appointment 2. And by the end of appointment 2, most prospects who are going to close within the next few weeks, even maybe up to the next few months, the vast majority of prospects should basically be ready to sign an agreement saying, hey, I'm ready to become a new client. And then the engage step which I mostly leave to you, is the actual onboarding process. They sign the agreement, but you need to have that be part of your process-based selling. You need to have your onboarding process well-defined, and it needs to be tied to all of this. And it needs to be informed by what they came in for in the first place. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the framing. So if we have that in place, we can start getting people to raise their hand and say, I am interested in a discovery call. And we do that, this is the nurturing step, with education-based marketing. And we start by nurturing right away, and we continue to nurture basically until somebody says, stop communicating with me, or until they're just gone, right? So education-based marketing, when I talk about that, I specifically think, and it's probably going to become a rule that I refer to Gary Bencivenga at least once per episode, because he was so influential to me as a marketer. And he's widely considered one of the world's best copywriters, people who actually knows what kind of messaging converts. And he said one of his biggest lessons, and he told me this directly, one of his biggest lessons that he learned that became a huge advantage in creating marketing that performed better than the other best copywriters in the world was make your advertising itself valuable. Don't start from the perspective of, I need to create something to sell someone. Start from the perspective of, I need to create something that is so valuable, somebody is basically guaranteed to give me their attention. And by the time they are done engaging with this thing, they will think, I need more. And the more is going to come from responding to the advertising. And so that's what education-based marketing is designed to do. It's not just doing a webinar because somebody said webinars are good. That's why the vast majority of financial advisor webinars just don't generate a ton of discovery calls. You need to design it so, yes, it's perceived as valuable. It does provide some level of education, but it is also designed to drive towards that response. That's the difference between education and education-based marketing. And most often that is done through essentially, I guess in the last episode, I said problems or markets. It's done through defining the problem, making it clear that you understand the problem that they are facing, that they're addressing, that they're worried about, and pointing towards the solution. And pointing towards the solution should really be your discovery call, right? And so your marketing is about moving someone from the problem state towards the solution state through responding to the advertising. Now, one of the most powerful things that you can do here is give them what I've called the new understanding of a persistent problem, or NUP for short, new understanding of a persistent problem. And so someone comes to you and they know that they've deferred taxes, and they're suddenly getting to retirement and they're realizing they have a decent amount of retirement savings and they're going to end up having to start paying taxes on that or something. Maybe they're getting close to RMD's age and they're worried about the tax bill on that, or they've even started to hear about RMDs. Well, the better that you can help them understand the problem itself, giving them a new understanding of this persistent problem that hasn't gone away yet, the more interested they will be in connecting with you in order to solve that problem. I'm going to repeat that. The better you can help them understand the problem itself, the more interested they will be in connecting with you for the solution. And so, done right, any of your education-based marketing should really say, here's what you need to understand about the problem, the challenge, and how it works out for people who don't address it, and the different strategies that can help you address it. And if you'd like to figure out what the ideal solution is for you, I can help. And the really cool thing today with what we have access to on the internet is we're able to do this education-based marketing. We're able to package it up. We're able to deliver it. We're able to give it to people at the right moment in their engagement with our messaging, with our brand, with the evaluation process that they go through between stimulus and response. We're able to package it up and put it in front of them at just the right time, such that it can replace a lot of the traditional marketing methods like seminars, TV shows, radio shows, or even live webinars where they have to show up at a specific time. And if you do it right, you can give them just the right information at just the right time such that they are interested in having an appointment with you to discover the solution to the problem. And so you do it right. It's designed to convert them to an appointment as the solution. And this is my client magnet. It's what I call the V2A client magnet system, which is video to appointment. And it's the equivalent of a VSL funnel, but it's very specific to let's create, and VSL stands for video sales letter. It's specific to let's create a desire in this particular person to solve this problem. You can't create desire. Let's channel their desire to solve this particular problem into understanding the problem better and presenting a potential solution. And when you create that video that follows the correct arc, the correct messaging arc, it can get them from starting to engage with your messaging all the way up to the point where they're booking that discovery call. And it can be the most direct path. It takes them from that. And it can be a 10, 15 minute video. It doesn't have to be especially long. It doesn't necessarily have to fulfill the full 7 hours rule, especially for the people who are closest to converting. This can be a highly effective way to move people from I'm interested in the topic to I'm ready to have a conversation with you about this particular aspect of my financial situation. And then the system itself that's built around this video, it's a simple landing page where somebody can request access to the video. It's a simple video page that says, here is the video that you request. Here is the information that you requested about solving this problem. And that provides a link to be able to book an appointment when they're done watching the video. There's a simple booking page. There's a simple thank you page. All of this can be pretty simple, and all of this can be pretty powerful because what you're doing is you're giving someone who is interested in the particular problem solution that you offer just enough education that they recognize that you understand the problem really well and you understand what a solution could look like, and that you're able to talk to them about that. And when you do that right, it can be wildly effective. And then we've done the foundation with the conversion system. We've done the framing with this client magnet. And then we do the finishing. We're finally going to start talking about the types of ads and content that attract your ideal clients. So now it's time to drive traffic. If you are creating short content, and this can be short ads, it can be social media posts, it can be emails that you send to your list, it can be different kinds of content that you put around around on the internet. It can even be short content that you put on, for example, OTT advertising or video advertising that goes out and is displayed before and during streaming programs that people watch. When you're doing short content, the client magnet itself is the offer. We've put together this information for you. We'll send it to your email so you can watch it at any time. And all you have to do is go to this place to get it, right? Or you can even have instant access to it. When you start to put together longer content, there is a chance, if it does a good job of replacing the client magnet itself, it can direct them towards the desirable discovery call, CTA, which is basically saying if the content itself does enough of a job of motivating someone to say, I want to have this conversation with you, you don't need to add any additional education-based marketing after that. But if not, if your longer content is maybe about a different topic, if your longer content is less directly relevant to that particular offer that you're making. So maybe you have general podcast episodes that are about financial planning for retirement, but you have a very specific tax saving strategy session offer that you make where that is the desirable discovery call offer, then the longer content may not be as relevant. And so you may have this longer content about retirement planning, about legacy planning, about whatever. And then you're going to have a bridge into essentially a short ad for the client magnet. So we talked about legacy planning today. We talked about estate planning today. One of the most important things that you can do to ensure that you're able to leave as big of a legacy as possible is to really protect the tax consequences of how your retirement savings are stored in different vehicles. And so, God, sometimes off the top, I apologize. My copy is thick. It's obtuse. It's not nearly as good as when I've had some time to edit and to improve it. But basically what I'm saying here is we talked about legacy planning. We talked about estate planning. Now, you don't want your money to get drained by the tax man before it ever gets to your estate, before it ever gets to the legacy that you want. And so we offer this retirement tax savings strategy session that's going to help you keep as much of your retirement savings away from the tax man as possible and in your pockets so that you can use it as you like through life and you can use it as you want through your legacy. And so that if your longer content is less relevant to the CTA, then you can just find a way to bridge. That's the point, right? So different traffic sources that are relevant, organic content. One of the beauties about having a really good conversion system is it makes everything else more effective. Whether you are out there doing podcast episodes or doing YouTube videos and you want a way to get those people who are engaging with your content there into your conversion system, raising their hand saying, I want to have a discovery call with you. Or whether you are scaling up some meta ads, whether you're scaling up some YouTube ads, whatever it is, right? Or whether you have a bunch of past prospects in your database and you want to get those who maybe weren't ready to become a client 6 months ago, but are ready today to raise their hand and let you know they're ready for a discovery call today. No matter which of those different traffic sources you're going to use, having the right conversion system in place, including the right client magnet that gets them to actually express interest, and then the right conversion system in place that gets the people who express interest to actually book that discovery call and go through to the process where they're onboarding as a client. Having all of that in place is going to make all of the different ways that you're going to invest time or money in driving traffic, it's going to make all of it far more profitable. And so different traffic sources are different types of organic content. Maybe that's posting on social media. Maybe that is, again, recording videos that go on YouTube or recording podcast episodes or whatever it is. And then there's the different types of paid advertising that you can do, online, offline, etc. If you're getting people in to raise their hand with the right client magnet, and then they're entering into your system, it's going to be more profitable than if you're just saying, oh, I heard Facebook ads might work for financial advisors, so I'm going to run Facebook ads for financial advisors. And then database marketing, don't sleep on database marketing, because just because somebody entered your world 6 months ago or 6 years ago and they weren't ready to become a client then, it doesn't mean that they're not ready to become a client now. In fact, one of the clients that we worked with, they said 2/3 of the people who became clients in any given calendar year, and this was a trend that had lasted multiple years, 2/3 of the clients who became clients this year had entered their database at least in the previous calendar year. And only 1/3 of the new clients that they were getting each year were from brand new leads. And what that means is because they did a good job of continuing to communicate to people, they were building that relationship through time. And people, whenever they decided they were ready to move towards becoming a client, whenever they had gone through the evaluation process enough or reached the appropriate point in their life where it went from being mildly interested to something they need to tackle right away, those people were raising their hand. And that was 2/3 of their new production, new business, was those people not the people who are coming in the door today. So don't sleep on database marketing. It's also a place where you can get results within a couple days. In fact, when I work with clients, one of the things I want to do is do a fast start where we're going to build the minimum viable conversion system for you. And ideally within about 7 days, we can get a bunch of discovery calls on your calendar. And the way that you do that is by doing database marketing. If you have a good amount of people who are in your CRM, who are in your past prospect list, who didn't become clients, there's some opportunities for some really fast wins there. Now, I want to share with you really quickly here 3 powerful messaging strategies as you're starting to put together the different types of ads that can drive traffic into your conversion system. The first one, and I will say that I did this. I've talked about it in this episode, and I talked about it in the last episode as well, or maybe the first episode. And that's the PISAR formula. Basically, you speak to, hey, I understand this challenge that you are facing right now, this worry that you have, this fear, this uncertainty, this doubt. I understand it. And maybe you can point to different things. Like, for example, most people don't understand, but even a small retirement savings could have 5 or even 6 figures in taxes that are above and beyond what that person would have to pay with better tax strategies. And so pointing out this problem, this challenge that they could run into, are you willing to give up an extra $10,000, $20,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000 to the IRS that you don't have to in retirement? It is a problem, a challenge that they may face, and help them understand that. And then move towards the agitation. What would that mean? Where would that money come from? What would it take away from in your retirement or in your legacy? The agitation there, the invalidation. You may have worked with your CPA throughout your entire working career to apply the right tax strategies to minimize your tax bills. But what you don't realize is a lot of those strategies push all of that all of that tax obligation into your retirement, and can hit your retirement like a tax time bomb if you don't do something about it today. So invalidating the best advice they've gotten on tax savings in the past. Now, we actually work with people who are planning for their retirement, who are moving into retirement, to identify the specific taxes, to calculate the specific taxes that they're going to have to pay on their retirement savings. We're defining the solution here. And once you calculate that and you look at where those tax obligations are going to come from, we work with them to identify the best tax saving strategies. And when you do that, then you can make educated decisions about how you might be able to reduce your tax obligation for the rest of your life. And if you'd like to do that, we do offer a retirement tax saving strategy session for you. No cost, no risk, no obligation. All you have to do is go here to schedule it. And then that was the action portion: problem, agitation, invalidation, solution, action. And then relief is, and the best part about going through this process is that by the end of it, you have made an educated decision. You've looked at your options about all the different ways that you could potentially save on taxes for all of your retirement. And you have identified the different strategies and what's going to be best for you. And so there's a sense of relief there that you don't have to pay any taxes that you shouldn't have to pay to the IRS out of your retirement savings. And there's a sense of relief that comes from that extra financial security that comes from holding on to instead of sending off all of that extra money to the IRS. And so that's one powerful way to do this message. And sometimes these can be as simple as 5 or 6 sentences. It doesn't have to be super long in order to do this. You can also use this formula to write. You could use this formula to write an entire 30-minute TV show or a webinar or whatever. It's a very flexible, powerful formula. An additional powerful messaging strategy to think about when you are doing advertising is you need to think about hooking attention. You need to call out your audience so they know that it's for them. You need to think in terms of visual hooks as well as messaging hooks. And so what's going to visually catch their eye and get them interested and get them curious to pay more attention, as well as what can you actually say in the advertising that's going to pull them in. And this applies whether it's static ads where it's just a picture, or whether it's a video or something more dynamic. Using market data is incredibly powerful. And so I think the past reference that I used there was the Lawrence Kotlikoff stat that 9 out of 10 Americans are set to they're set to lose out on $182,000 in lifetime income from Social Security by making the wrong Social Security filing decision. Or on average, 9 out of 10 Americans miss out on that $182,000. Using that market data does a great job of catching attention, and having a bunch of quotes and having a bunch of stats like that in your toolkit that you can use in your marketing is incredibly powerful, and it's something that I absolutely keep for myself. And in all of this, the one thing that you want to avoid doing in marketing is, like the Super Bowl ad phenomenon, where you try to make it entertaining at the expense of not making it relevant to your target audience. You want to make sure that your target audience knows that this message is relevant to them. And so as you work to hook attention, you want to keep it relevant. And then again, because advertising and marketing is sales multiplied through media, you need to have a clear and compelling next step that moves someone into the buying process. And so having a V2A, the video to appointment client magnet in place, and having a desirable discovery call process in place, a desirable discovery call offer in place that gets someone to raise their hand as they're engaging with it. If you have these clear next steps in place and it is relevant and tied to the messaging that you are using in the advertising, then what you're doing is you're basically, you've eliminated the leaky bucket that we were talking about. You're pushing people into an effective conversion system, and they know what to do. They know how to take the next step. And man, I will tell you, as I've consulted with clients, just riffing a little bit, as I've consulted with clients, one of the simplest things that I've done, and yet the most powerful, is to look at what they're doing. So for example, when I was listening to call center calls, when somebody responded to the advertising that we were putting on TV or the radio, when I was listening to that call center call and I heard that call and it was not directed towards a clear and compelling next step for the caller, I just recognized, okay, if I get more clear and I get more compelling about what the next step is for the caller, and I make it really easy and obvious to take that next step, then I'm going to get better response. And that's how we went from this game of chase where nobody who called in had an appointment booked by the end of that call to 80% of the people calling in having an appointment booked on the calendar, the member of the client team, ready to talk to them about their financial situation and their retirement planning. It's just about identifying that clear and compelling next step and making sure that it's there. Now, I know that I got kind of into the weeds there, and this can be kind of a lot. And, I have a note here that it's not meant to overwhelm. I do want to talk about a reminder of why this works. So in the last episode, I shared that based on Google's research, how we make buying decisions has fundamentally changed. In between stimulus and response, there's an evaluation step that requires 7 hours of engagement. This is on average, 7 hours of engagement across 11 touch points in 4 separate media channels before somebody is ready to respond. And what we're doing is we're trying to foster that evaluation step and really help someone make that buying decision. And ideally, we're going to educate them in a way so they're going to make the best buying decision. And ideally, our service is going to be that best buying decision. And so because we're dealing with this new scenario where we all have the world's information at our fingertips and we do evaluate decisions more, we do evaluate responses more than ever before, we as marketers need to build to suit that. And so this marketing system, the daily discovery calls system for financial advisors, is really built to suit that. It's built to capture people at that point of first engagement, right? when we're putting the stimulus out there and they're like, ooh, I'm interested, I want to evaluate, it brings them into our world. It connects with them. And in connecting with them, it also helps them make that evaluation. And some are going to be ready right away. But the ones who aren't ready right away, they're fed into a system that continues to help them educate themselves about making the right decision. And eventually, at some point, making the right decision may involve doing business with you. And so building your system for this new reality is what is required in order to make your advertising, your marketing expenses and investment of time and energy more profitable in today's reality. It's not meant to overwhelm. It's something that you build it one step at a time. You say, okay, core conversion system, get it right. The client magnet, get it right. The different ads that are going to drive people in, or the content or the database marketing, get it right. You just build it one step at a time. And, I will say help is available. You know where to find me, right? Help is available if you want to do this, if you want to get these results. So in wrapping up this episode, I want to remind you, subscribe so you get more content like this delivered to you. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Roy Furr. You can also look for TheAdvisorCMO. And if you do want to get that desirable discovery calls training, that's at TheAdvisorCMO.com/discovery. Again, TheAdvisorCMO.com/discovery. So you can learn at least that one key essential core piece of the puzzle, and even go try it yourself, of how to create a discovery call offer that's so compelling, borrowing some language from Alex Hormozi, that it's so good that people would feel stupid saying no, right? Building that kind of offer that's going to move people to say, yeah, I think that I need to talk to you. And when you do it right, it does make all of this stuff just work so much better. All right, so with that, I will see you again in the next episode. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Daily Discovery Calls for Financial Advisors. If you got value from this episode, I'd absolutely love it if you do me the favor of sharing it with one other person who you think would also find it valuable. It's how the show can grow and how I can keep bringing this value to you. And if you want to learn more about how you can book more discovery calls with your ideal clients, go to TheAdvisorCMO.com/podcast.